This is tutorial 6 part B. We're going to take these marks here from QM1 in semester 1 2016 and draw a random sample, a simple random sample of size 20 from those. We've seen some of this before, so it will seem familiar. So those are the marks. First of all, we just need to enter the random number generation that will select the students. So we'll go equals rand between 1 up to there are 1,416 rows. So that will give us our first random drawing, and then select that and copy it and then paste it down. We want 20 of them, so we'll paste it down 20 places like that. And those are our random drawings. Now we'll notice, as we've seen before, as we keep doing stuff in the spreadsheet, those numbers will change. But don't worry about that until right at the end, when you're selecting the actual results to take to your tutorial. All right, so those are your random row numbers, right? The random students. What we want now are the marks from this column that correspond to each one of these. So this is student number 212, and we need to find the mark corresponding to student 212. And that's what we use the index command for. We've seen that before as well. I was just going to show you as well kind of a neat way to refer to large ranges within a spreadsheet if you feel like it. You don't have to do this, but so I've gone to the formulas tab here, and we can define a name, and I'm going to call that name population, and that's just going to be a shorthand which is going to refer to all of the marks from, whoa, look at that mess. Well, let's try deleting some of that. So sheet 1, A and 1 up to A and 1416. So the idea of this is it's selecting all of those cells in column A from row 1 up to row 1416. So in other words, all of the marks are being included in this name, and they're all going to be called the population, or we could call them marks, or we can call them whatever you like. Okay, so the name is your choice, but that's the population of marks from which we are drawing. And the reason I'm doing that is now when we go index here, then I can just type the word population here instead of selecting that range, and you can see over there it has actually indicated the range. So that seems cute, something to know about. Okay, so index population, and then what row number do we want? This one, the one that we just randomly drew. And then close the brackets, and that will select the mark corresponding to the row number, the student number here. So 51 is student number 51. If we pop down here, we'll see that their mark is 64, which is what's been recorded there. That's what we want, right? And now we can take this cell. I have no idea what happened there. Go away. We take this cell and copy it and paste all the way down to the 20th one, like that. Okay, so the numbers keep changing as we've seen before. Anyway, so there's a random selection of marks. Okay. Now that's not the end of the story this time, because what we want to record is not just the mark, but whether the student received a grade of pass, which is a mark from 50 up to 64. So there's a couple of ways to do this. Here's a convenient way, and what we want it expressed as is like a code which is equal to 1 if the student has got a P, and a 0 if they have not. So we want to ultimately end up with a 1 in this column. So for this 57, for example, the student has got a P, so we want a 1 here. And same for this 53. But for these others, for the 46, for the 65, for the 75, we want zeros for those ones, because those don't correspond to P's. So we can use just kind of some relations for this, built up as follows. So let's just look at this 75, and there's two conditions to satisfy. Okay, greater than or equal to 50, and less than 65, or less than or equal to 64. Now what you can do, let's build this up one at a time, 1 equals will do, and I'll just put it in brackets to make it clearer. So equals this is greater than or equal to 50, and close that bracket. And that's going to test that condition that that cell is greater than or equal to 50. Okay, and of course now it's changed it to 66, and you can see that it's given us a true. All right, so 66 is indeed greater than or equal to 50, so that's good. It's not a number though, is it? So what you could do, if you only had one condition to check, then you could take this and you could just multiply it by 1, and then Excel turns that into the number 1 at that point. So a true condition times a 1 will give you a 1, but a false condition times a 1 would give you a 0. But that's not the end of the story in this case, because we don't just want to know that they're greater than or equal to 50, we want to know that they are also less than 65, because 65 is where H3 kicks in. Okay, so let's keep editing this, and instead we're going to multiply this again, and we're going to go C1 less than 65. So that's expressing both of the conditions. So the way that you read this formula is, if the value in cell C1 is greater than or equal to 50, it will be a 1. If C1 is also less than 65, this will be a 1. So we'll have a 1 times a 1, and that cell will be overall a 1. Okay? But if either of these conditions do not hold, it will be returning a 0. So if the mark were less than 50, this would be a 0, in which case when you multiply these together, you'll get a 0. Doesn't matter what that one is. Or alternatively, if this mark here is 65 or above, this will be a 0, in which case when you multiply them together, you'll get a 0. So the effect of putting in the two conditions together like this and then multiplying them together is to return a 1 if both of those things are true, and a 0 otherwise, if either or both of them are false. Okay, so I'll just hit enter on there. Okay, so that's given us a 1 there, because that 56 does satisfy the condition. That's a P. Alright, these numbers are going to keep changing of course, but let's just copy this and send it all the way down to the bottom like that, and paste. Alright, so let's check that that's worked before we do anything else. So this is now the data, this is what's asked for in the question, is some observations of the form 1s and 0s, and it's a 1 if the student got a P, this is true, and it's 0 if the student did not get a P. Okay, so these are not P's, these are better than P's, these are honours grades, and then we have another P, honours grade, honours grade, honours grade, honours grade, that's a P, that one there, and so on. Do we have any fails? Here we go, 45 is a fail. To check, that's got a 0, that's not a P. So that looks like it's worked. Okay, that's the kind of thing that we want. Okay, 1s corresponding to the P's between 50 and 64, and 0s everywhere else. Okay, that's good. Finally, the question asks you to just take the sample mean of these numbers and the variance of these numbers, which is the kind of thing that we've done a bit of before. So we'll just go average and select this range, okay, and we'll go variance dot s and select this range. And that's it. So you can stop there. So if you followed this far, then you've now completed that question. What you would take to your tutorial is, well, this is your mean of 0.75, this is your variance of 0.19, and I mean you can take your 1s and your 0s as well in case you need any additional statistics calculated from those.